Well, here we are. Looks like we're working. So we've had quite a few weeks go by without having a Rak Chazak. And a lot of that has been because you've been amazingly busy getting ready to move out of Australia, coming back to the U.S. And
yeah. Well, I mean, you've been pretty busy yourself with all your meetings and everything. So,
but busy is a 4-letter word. So,
yeah. What is busy? I mean, it comes down to what we were just talking about. Saying, the meaning of words has been completely lost and turned upside down.
Yeah.
And I think in so many ways we don't actually really even stop to think. About what we're saying about these words.
Yeah, that's so true. But
yes, to answer your question, it has been very busy. It's been very stressful, but I think we're on the other side of it. So
well, you've got a house now, and we're here with you in your house. We just brought the kids down because we had them out on vacation, touring some of the United States. I think we counted up 15 states that we went through, getting them out here from California to here in Florida. So, but I think one of the things we were thinking of talking about was this whole understanding of here's Australia, where you've been for 12 years, and now here you are back in the United States, and
well, look, I think 2 years ago, probably a little bit more now, 2.5 years ago, well, in 2019 when we were here last, I don't think, my entire intent was to stay. I didn't have any intention of leaving Australia. Things were pretty good. We were moving in a positive direction. Had a good job. Everything like that. And in the space of 2 years, the experiences. We've all had our experiences. We've all seen things and been through things, and
a lot of people had a lot of experiences over the last 2.5 years.
And not very many of them were easy. There's a lot of anger and a lot of resentment and a lot of frustration, and a lot of things were built up over that 2 years. And think about it. It's and I think we've touched on this before, but I don't think ever in our lifetime, we've ever felt, or I've ever felt, completely shut out of society like I did, like I have for, in Australia for the last 2 years.
Well, you even lost your job, so.
Well, I lost 3.
Yeah.
Lost 3 jobs. It's amazing because people still sit there and say, well, you lost your job because of your own choice. And I go, what choice was that?
Right.
What choice exactly did I have? Things were being forced. It was, it was amazing. I just share some experiences, really. I remember the last time. So over the space of 2 years, you probably have heard the news. Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world.
Yeah, I heard that statistic from several sources.
Yeah. We had like 5 or 6 different ones.
Yeah.
Where the worst one was the first one. Actually, the second one. The second one was the worst one. That was that was over 6 months.
Wow.
We couldn't move more than 5 kilometers outside of our where our home was at. Like everything was shut down. Everything was shut down. Deliveries. I remember trying to make a delivery for a a coffee filter, for so I could have, so I could have an espresso in the morning. And that took over 10 weeks to get, just because there was no delivery drivers. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. All the store, all the restaurants, everything was closed. They've shut down the post office. I think the only thing that was open was food and hospitals and pharmacy. That was it. Everything else was shut. And my kids were at home. We all struggled through that. Yeah. And that was tough. That was really tough. And I had so much anger and frustration out of that, because I just felt, and I think a lot of it, I'm still, I still get upset about it. I think, I'm trying to learn how to deal with it better. But I still get upset about it. Because the fact of the matter is that in all this time, nobody was ever held accountable, for their actions, for what they did.
And we're still waiting.
And we're probably never going to get a result on it.
Yeah.
But getting back to my point, and sitting there saying, you're shut down to this local area, and that was the worst one. And I lost my job on that one, and then we kind of started to come out of that one in summertime. Around December, they started to open things back up, and that was before the vaccine. We kind of started to open back up, get things kind of back to normal a little bit. Kids are back to sports, playing games, all that type of stuff. And then, and then we came back around fall. They started freaking out again. All the numbers, all this, all that, and and that was when all the mandates came in. All that type of stuff. And for me personally, it was, I was working by then. I had a new job. I had a temporary job for 3 months, and then I moved into what was supposed to be a permanent job. And so, so I'm sitting there, and I get a phone call from my boss one day, because all the mandates are coming. There's some of our companies that actually started to sit, that we did work for, actually started to sit there and say, we won't let you on site unless you've had the vaccine. And I was really up in the air about it. Like, I like to think I was really steadfast on it. It was like, flat, no, I'm not going to do it. But that wasn't the case. I was really up in the air about it for a while. And, for me personally, it never made sense. I could never figure out a justifiable case to actually to actually do it. And I remember one time I got the phone call. It was like 3 days before my probation. No, sorry, that was about 2 weeks before my probation ended. My company, so it's like a 6-month probation.
Sure, yeah.
And then then you get your full contract.
Pretty standard practice.
Yeah, it's standard practice in Australia.
Well, here too, really.
Yeah, I think most companies are starting to do that now. But but there I am. It's a couple weeks beforehand. And I get a phone call from my boss, and he sits there and he goes, "Hey, we're just doing a quick survey. And it's, it's a company-wide survey. It's completely anonymous. Not. And here we go. And he says, so are you planning on taking the shot? And I was like, well, hey, Richard, you're not allowed to ask me that. And he said, so he got real defensive, I said, you're not allowed to ask me about personal medical, issues. that's medical privacy. That's my issue, not yours. And he goes, look, it's completely anonymous. It's just a company survey, just kind of seeing where everybody's at. And he got really defensive about it. And so I kind of got a little frustrated with him. And, and I said, look, Richard, I said, I don't know. I'm on the fence. He's like, fine. And he's like, well, we'll talk later. And he hung up. And, about 2.5 weeks later, it was 3 days before my probation ended. And I get a phone call from Richard sitting there saying, I need you to come in the office. We need to have a chat. Right? Well, it's usually not good news.
No.
And I said, Richard, I said, don't do it. I said, if you got something to say it. Right? And he's like, I need you to come in the office. I said, I'm not going in the office. I said, if you got something to say it. And he goes, all right, fine. And he's like, we're ending your probation. And I said, it's because of the vaccine, isn't it? And he goes, no. Just completely backpedaling all this other type of stuff. I was like, don't lie to me. It's because of the vaccine. So people sit here and say, oh, you had a choice, right? It's because, you being shut out of society is because of the choices that you made. And, I disagree, because I sit here and say, what choice? What choice did I have? Right? So, you do it and you give up your freedom, right? You don't do it and you give up your freedom, but either way you're giving up your freedom. But I at least want to have something on my conscience where I'm sitting here saying I can actually live with myself because I made a decision that was best for me.
Right. Well, I just listened to a short segment. I think it was on Twitter that was propagated forward. And anyway, this nurse was talking on it, and she said all kinds of things going on since getting her injection. And she said she used to look on people who didn't get it, kind of sneered at them, they're being careless, they're being whatever, She said now, with her health situation where it is, she's looking at those people that she knew that didn't take it. She said, you're the smart ones. You were the smart ones. She said, if I had to do it over again, I would not take it.
Yeah.
And that has been repeated over and over and over again. That was just one story, but I've been exposed to many very similar. And we're starting to get enough information now. The article that just came out this morning in this month's issue of the Masters of Health magazine, I write a monthly article for I titled it What We Have Learned, because we're now 2.5 years into this whole experience, and we're finding out it isn't what we were originally told.
Well, none of it is. The more layers get peeled back, the more we find that. And
I ended my article with that statement that you had made early on, is that as we were putting the masks on, the masks were coming off. Of course, we never put the masks on, but as the masks were being required, the masks of the people in charge were coming off, more and more showing what their real motive was, and we're beginning to find out it was not a good motive. I'm reading the book right now, written by Robert Kennedy Jr., and I'm just amazed at page after page of documentation of the motives of these people in charge. It's just it almost makes your blood boil to see how careless and malfeasant they were all the way through this whole experience. Anyway, yeah.
Look, it's been a ride, that's for sure. But I think
Well, you're here.
look, exactly right. And I think one of the things that we need to kind of tie, this whole thing into is the fact that, it really comes down to, because I do believe quite firmly that we're living in an unprecedented time.
Oh yeah.
And the Bible calls them birth pangs, and I think that is a very, very valid and accurate statement for the times that we're living in right now. And I don't think that there's enough people, ministers, pastors or whatever, who are actually in tune with the times that we are living in right now. And for me personally, I look at this and I mean, I can't even tell you, how many times my father-in-law in Australia would come up to me and say, just get the damn shot and let's go golfing.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like everything's going to be fine, and and we're going to be, we're going to be all happy and everything's going to be good. And how hard it was for me to be, somebody who had only, I was the only one who had made that choice, and nobody else could understand why I had made that choice. And, ultimately what it really comes down to, I think, is what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up?
Right.
Because the Bible, if we believe the times that we're living in right now, the Bible says it's the very beginning.
Right.
Beginning of sorrows, absolutely. And we are coming into very difficult times. It's one of the things that really surprised me was coming back here. Like, it was hearing everything from Australia. Right. And being on, say I was on Getter or whatever it was, the social media platforms, and sitting there and reading these things and going like, oh my gosh, how bad are things, right? I was in Australia during the trucker strike, and Afghanistan and all this other type of stuff. Like I was in Australia and I'm sitting there, looking at it from this third party view and going like, what is going on? Like, it is just a disaster. And then I come here, and even in California, I was like, I landed,
Like
and I'm like, what's going on?
Where's the trouble?
Yeah, like what's the problem? What's the issue?
I thought there'd be bonfires in the middle of the streets.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I thought this was going to be unsafe like Johannesburg, and I'm sitting there going like, man, this is weird. And I get to Florida. We're in the South, and Florida, an amazing state. It's amazing what good governance will do.
Yeah.
And I just go like, people are going about their lives. You go down to the beaches are packed, people are going to work, people are doing this, people are doing that. And I'm like, where's this invasion at the southern border? Where's this invasion of these, of like Cubans and Haitians and stuff like that coming into Florida? Like, where is all this stuff?
They're at the beach.
Right? I'm just sitting there going like, I've had a beautiful time at the beach. The gas prices are like half of what I pay in Australia.
Even as bad as they seem.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there going like, man, this is weird. And I think in so many ways that is the problem.
Yeah.
Is that everything is so normal, we're not actually seeing.
So now we're in we have to be careful that we don't get sucked into the normalcy bias.
Yeah.
Which would normalcy bias being that in spite of what we hear, things possibly could be a trouble coming down the line. We take this position, oh, it's just, they've been saying that for years, nothing's going to happen. So there needs to be kind of maybe a balance between preparing a little bit, maybe some extra food or things, because there are, one of the things I firmly believe is that we can't keep spending the way we're spending as a nation here in the U.S. and not run into some kind of problem. So from that standpoint, even as normal as things are appearing here right now, I think we need to also be kind of saying, okay, it's good for now, and so while it's good, I'm going to make some preparations, because if it does take a turn, in fact, some people say it's not a matter of if something's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen.
Well, I don't think there's any question about it, and I think that's kind of what I was kind of getting to, was that having been through what I've been through and what my family has been through the past 2 years, and coming from that and seeing this and seeing how everybody's just going about their daily lives, and I'm sitting there going like, you guys have no idea what's coming.
Yeah. So,
because it's even sitting here saying, right, Yeshua told us to watch, to pay attention to the seasons. Right. I don't see very many people paying attention to the seasons.
There isn't, and that's what I mean by the normal. When I say normalcy bias,
and even when we went to church, yesterday, right? So we go to church yesterday, and the pastor's sitting there talking about, something. Yeah, was it relevant? Absolutely, right. Like I think he's talking about. He's talking about, God uses everybody. He was using disciples as a prime example.
The different characteristics of the different disciples,
right?
Yeah,
right. But the fact of the matter is, I've heard very few pastors. I think Pastor Gary has just started to kind of start talking more in this level.
Right.
He's the only one I know of.
Saying get ready.
Saying like, people, we are genuinely at a point here in history where I think the Bible says that all history has looked to this point in time.
Right. Yeah. Upon whom the ends of the age have come. I think Luke says. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it would be a disservice and a discredit to sit here and go and say, hey, we're okay.
Right.
We're fine.
Right.
Because look, let's be honest, at the end of the day, we're not.
Yeah, that's right. So just kind of thinking back on, okay, so you've left Australia. Australia was in many ways in, I don't want to say worse shape, but in more challenging, that might be a better way to say it, than here. But you're also saying, in having been through what you've been through in Australia and seeing what you're seeing here, it's not all roses here. that there's some things we need to be really watchful about what's happening here. So I was thinking of in what you're seeing here, it's interesting because if somebody lives here in the U.S. their whole life and they're seeing what they're seeing, they're not going to be alerted to the same things that you, coming from Australia, having been through what you've been through there, are noticing here.
I think it comes back to at some point in time, you know, I think the Bible's pretty clear that you need to be at a point where you're willing to walk away from everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's pretty clear the Bible doesn't say, you know, oh, you know, you might run, you might have to leave, it says take care that, you know, or like hope that your flight is not in winter.
Right.
You know, like that seems pretty definitive to me. You know? And I think one of the biggest things, and I think when we look at this as you know, as a great, in Bible school they always used to talk about the great falling away.
Right. Yeah.
Coming right after the great revival.
Yeah.
You know? And if you look at that, and you know, and I look at I look at what we see. I mean, we can drive down the block and we could probably see 10 different churches.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Right. And I think Pastor Gary actually had an observation. You know, and I think I've had that observation many times. You know, as well. You know, but sitting there saying, you know, you go to church on Sunday. You hear a great sermon, you know, you hear some great music, whatever. But what's changed?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely true.
You know, who are you walking with? How are you better? How are you closer? You know, how is your walk more meaningful? How, you know, and this is the thing, when that call comes, you say, what are you willing to give up?
Right.
Right? I think most people aren't willing to give up very much.
Well, so that's the thing that, you know, I think your experience speaks to that a lot, because a lot of people I talk to, as we travel around a lot more than most people, and we talk with different groups of people and things, a lot of times you're talking to people that, and they're about these, you know, well, I'm willing to die for the gospel. I'm willing to give up all this.
Really?
And the, you know, that same person, and I'm thinking of one person in particular, got a shot so they could go to Israel.
Yeah, wow.
You know, so I mean, I was thinking.
So what exactly are you giving up?
Well, more than that, you chose the easy way. You know, rather than stand on a principle and say, no, I'm not. And they were a medical trained person on top of that, you know.
Yeah.
So they should have known better. But they were choosing expedience so that they could get what they were after. And that causes me to I mean, I have to ask myself these questions. You know, do I have this bravado that, oh, well, I will, you know, when the reality is when push comes to shove, am I going to cave in along with everybody else? You know,
well, let me just probably.
I think we have to challenge ourselves.
We do, and I think I can probably sum up that thought by saying that one of the hardest experiences of my life, and I think I'm just coming to realize just how hard it actually was being told by society you don't matter.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you know, and knowing, you know, that's not a theoretical exercise for me.
Right.
You know, I know exactly what it feels like to be completely thrown out of society because of your decisions. And I know how hard that has been.
Yeah.
Your life is a whole different story.
Yeah. So those are the I think the
So what I'm saying, like, it's really great, and I appreciate anybody who sits there and says I'm willing to die for my beliefs. Right. But
when push comes,
don't say that as something that is
Right.
that is a oh yeah, that sounds really good.
Right.
Like I'm
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
going to use the word fanatical. I'm going to say, I'm enthusiastic about
Hardcore,
about God. I'm a hardcore Christian and stuff like that. I can pretty well tell you that I think your story about the Vietnamese,
Yeah.
right? Where they say, what can we pray for you for?
Yeah.
They said, pray for more persecution.
Yeah.
Because we're getting soft.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I'll pretty well tell you right now, there's probably not a single person, Christian in America, right? Unless they've lived in that environment, been in that environment, there's not a single Christian here in America who could sit there and say that with any level of sincerity.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say not a single, but it would be very few.
Well, it'd be it would be so minimal it'd almost be none.
Right.
Sure, there are, but I'm talking about people who haven't experienced that. I'm not talking about people like David Hogan or people like that. I'm talking about people that haven't experienced that.
Yeah, people who actually walk the talk.
Yeah. And I know for me, I sit there and I go, yeah, it's really easy for me to sit here and say that.
Yeah.
And I remember like coming out of it on the other side. And this last year, earlier this year, I think it's probably around February or maybe January, I don't remember. But they were starting to kind of lift the lockdowns a little bit. So I remember the first one that they lifted was you could go to retail, but only if you had the vaccination. Makes no sense.
Especially knowing what we know now.
Yeah. No, sorry. The first one they lifted was the 5 kilometer, and then the limitations on gatherings but only if you're vaccinated. The second one was retail, but only if you're vaccinated. And then about a week later, they went, all right, everybody can go to retail.
Yeah.
And then the third one was restaurants, but only if you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
The fourth one was, okay, everybody can go to restaurants, but you still couldn't work.
Yeah.
Right? And then the fifth one, they finally went, all right, everybody can work. But I think I remember telling you this was that by the time they said, oh, everybody can work, companies already had policies in place.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And they were supported by the government. So the government could sit there and say, oh, you don't need to be vaccinated. But the company could say, our policy is that you have to be vaccinated.
Right.
Right. So, but I remember I had gone to so they had just opened retail, and I'd gone to the hardware store or something like that, the day before, and I had to go back to the shops, get something the next day, and I'd heard something about they were no longer requiring people to check in, like use a little QR code and all that type of stuff. And and I remember I walked in, I drove down to the shops, and all the signs were gone.
Just right? Like that.
Everything was gone. Everything. All the 1.5 meter stuff, like everything. Every single sign was gone. All the checkouts were gone. Everything was gone. Right? There was still hand sanitizer stations and stuff like that. There's no more. But there's no check-ins. There was no you have to show your proof of vaccination, all this type of stuff. Right? There was none of it. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, I've literally strayed either into a dream or a nightmare.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that really got to me about that whole thing was so what? People are expecting me to just forget about the last 2 years?
Yeah, right.
Don't worry, guys. Last 2 years is fine. Don't worry. It was like, hold on a second. who's being held accountable?
Yeah.
You know,
and that has not happened. It probably won't happen.
Like you've stolen 2 years of my life.
Yeah, exactly. And not just you. Just think about the young people that didn't get to have graduations and.
Oh yeah, I mean,
school.
Fortunately, both my kids, had their graduations. But, but I remember this, and and if we look at this and we say that this is the beginning of sorrows, this is the beginning of the birth pangs, right? If we look at this, and we say, like. We're only at the beginning.
What's the next phase?
We're at stage 1,
right?
And this darn near broke me.
And they pulled this off with impunity, no accountability. So what's the next phase going to be? That's the real big question right now.
Well, I think God knows what the next phase is.
Sure.
I mean,
he doesn't get caught by surprise.
He says that there's going to be signs in the heavens, and that there's going to be earthquakes, and there's going to be, natural disasters and wars and rumors of wars and all these other types of things. That's what the Bible says, and then we get into Revelation and we start seeing that the actual full terror of the judgment of God.
Right.
To where we sit here and say it is better off to be dead for the mountains and the rocks to fall upon us than it is to face that day.
Yeah.
Right? Now
unless we're tucked into the secret place of the Most High and abide in the shadow of the
Exactly
Almighty.
right.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's really what this whole talk really comes down to, I think, is that we have no idea.
Right.
We don't. We have no idea. And if we've barely been able to get through, these last 2 years, like the only way we can get through anything, what's to come, is by the grace and the mercy of Elohim. And outside of that, there's nothing. And I think people can sit here and go, you're full of hot air, or, you're just a doomsayer, or whatever, conspiracy theorist, whatever label anybody wants to lay on anything that we say, that's fine. That's up to you. Like, if you're going to ignore what we're saying, but one of the things I think, God was very clear when I got on the plane to come over here. He was very clear. And he said, speak my word.
Mm. Yeah.
Because his word is truth. His word is not a mixture of truth and lie. His word is truth, and only truth.
And I'm hearing a song running through my head, the song "People Get Ready."
Yeah.
And I think it's high time that we get ready.
I think it's high time that we actually start coming out and saying, the people, whoever is for God, whoever is a true believer in God, we can't be the silent ones. We can't be the compromising ones. We can't be the ones who sit there and say, hey, we just all want to get along. Guess what? I think it's pretty clear who the world is coming after. They're coming after us.
Yeah.
They're coming after the church.
Yeah, that's true.
You want to know who public enemy number one is?
Yeah.
The church. Plain and simple. And even more so than that, it's the people who really do believe.
Yeah.
And have a solid foundation.
Yeah.
That's who they're coming after.
And we've been warned of that. Yeshua said, if they treated me this way, what do you think they're going to do to you who follow me? So,
all of this
shouldn't be surprises.
No, it shouldn't. And all of this conjured up confusion that's going on in the world today.
Right.
If you're confused, then I'm sorry. I have to actually ask whether you actually know God.
Yeah, because he's not the author of confusion.
No. He is the author of, I mean, he's the one who gives us a clear mind.
Right.
The ability to think, the ability to reason, the ability to understand.
Right.
You know, it's his mind, so you need to take on the mind of Christ.
And that really is kind of what we're coming down to, that this polarization that's taking place, where he said, you know, there's fear and confusion and what the enemy is trying to put on the land, because that gives him power. Or there's love, power, and a sound mind. I've not given you a spirit of fear, but of love, and of power, and a sound mind. So there's your contrast.
Yeah.
And that's that's the choice that we can make today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes down to sitting here saying, if you don't have peace in your life, then you probably don't have God in your life.
Right.
You know, because he is peace.
Right.
He is, exactly what you said. He is a sound mind. I know that sounds really harsh, right, to sit here and say that. But those are questions that we need to be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
If we cannot sit here and confess with our mouth that Jesus Christ, that Yeshua HaMashiach is the Lord and Savior, died on the cross, was raised again after 3 days,
Yeah.
was taken back up to heaven to sit at the right hand of God himself, who is God himself.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right?
Another
Right?
mystery. Yeah,
If
right.
we cannot confess that with our own mouth, right? Because that is the confession of faith.
Yeah. And it's not just a confession. It's not just saying it. It's developing that relationship where we know it, where we live
absolutely.
it, where we live it. My one string relationship. Because at the end of the day, if he says I don't know you, that's a sad day.
Yeah.
And knowing him is relationship. So
I think you can see that we're probably taking a little bit of a turn on the subject matter. Maybe it's only for this one, I don't know. But we can't sit here and be mealy-mouthed about things anymore. There is one truth in the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the only truth that we can live by. If you are living by any other truth than what is spoken in the written word, then again, I'm sorry.
I don't think it's a lot of a term, because it's still Rak Chazak. We still have to have that courage and that strength to go out knowing this and to share it. It says that those who know their God will do great exploits, and I think that would, and I would add, and I'm not adding to Scripture per se, but I would say especially in the last days, as these events come down, there's going to be some incredible exploits that will be performed by those who know their God.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and that's true, Rak Chazak. That's really what we're after. What each one of us, we want to be found. We want to hear that word, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord." And that's the people who hear that are going to be the ones that have that Rak Chazak, that step forward in obedience, no matter what's going on around them, no matter what the condition of the world is that is swirling around them, the chaos, the fear, all of those things that are being thrown at them. They're going to be the ones, the solid ones, the ones that are standing when everything else has fallen.
Yeah.
So,
I agree,
and I want to be one of those.
Well,
I think
I think we do.
Yeah.
But I think we have to understand, and I think we have to come back to the point, is saying, to be that person, what are we willing to walk away from? What are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to give up?
Right.
And that, I think, I struggle with that. I struggle with that question every single day, and and I know, I have this picture, in my mind of who I want to be, who I want God to make me into, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's.
But it all comes down to sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good place to leave it for this time. And I'm sure now that we're in the same country and we're starting to get things settled, we'll be able to start getting back on a regular schedule. So thank you all for being patient with us to wait this time to get another one out. But here we are, and here it is. And we will close out by saying, Rak Chazak, have courage and stand firm. The days ahead were going to be quite a ride, but we are going to see the end of it. And we thank our Father for the strength to walk it out.